Coming up next, our App of the Week, in which we show you how to use the app and review its accessibility. You can submit your recording for this segment. Email it to us at contactus@blindandroidusers.com.
Hi. For episode 133 of the Blind Android Users Podcast App of the Week, this is demonstrating Instapaper, Instapaper. Instapaper has been around since 2010 or 2011, somewhere there, and it's been stable for many people all these years. So think of Instapaper like the likes of Pocket, something we demonstrated in one of our episodes. Instapaper, however, is not your typical RSS reader. In other words, it's not something that you can easily subscribe to an RSS feed from within the Instapaper without using a plugin, something like Zapier or IFTT. Instapaper's focus, however, is that clean UI that you get when reading an article, even though it does retain the images, for example, but it does not get in the way whether you're reading it with your screen reader or reading it with the TTS output. That's the beauty of Instapaper. The focus, however, therefore, is to be able to share articles to it from across the web. So, for example, if you're reading an article on your web browser, you can just tap on that More options, tap on that Share, and choose Instapaper from among the apps presented to share it with. That's how you add or build the number of articles in your Instapaper outside of using those plugins to subscribe to RSS feeds that you like. For today's demonstration, I'll be utilizing the Galaxy S21 running One UI 5.1, and in the way of the TTS engine, I will be using the defunct Eloquence today because if I use the regular Google speech services, then it conflicts with the readout from the TTS output from Instapaper as it uses the same speech services, therefore it doesn't get to play. So in other words, if you're going to be using the TTS readout from Instapaper, you would need to switch to a different TTS engine when you use it. In the way of the screen reader, of course, I'm using TalkBack 13.5 as for Samsung. Now, let's go ahead, though, and show you what we have. And if you haven't signed on to Instapaper before, so if you heard this demonstration and then you decide to go download it, upon launching the app, you're going to find two buttons toward the bottom. The first one will tell you to create an account, and the second one will ask you to sign in. And whether you create an account or you sign in, when you get it going, you'll be landed in the home area. Let's get started, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, and we'll go from here. I am on my home screen, and I'll now find and tap on Instapaper.
Instapaper in Pager, window home.
I'll go ahead and tap.
Instapaper, Outlook versus Gmail. How do they compare?
As you can hear, the first article here is Outlook versus Gmail. And this is one of the articles that I have saved, and therefore it's in my home view. That is, in the home area where all my saved articles are located. Now, one thing to bear in mind here is that every time you add an article, it gets saved toward the top. So the newest is always at the top. So that's the sorting. At the top, we've got some buttons. We've got one that says menu on the top left corner, and then two more on the right. We've got the search, and at the rightmost is the more options. I do want to mention here in passing, however, that some of the buttons here, even the ones that I just mentioned, especially the one that says menu on the top left and the more options on the top right, are both unlabeled, and so the heavy lifting here is being done by TalkBack. Let's go ahead and I show you what I'm talking about. Starting with the top left corner, I'll put my finger near the top left.
Out of list. Detected. Icon menu, text apostrophe Instapaper.
You heard icon menu, and moving to the right,
Search.
that one is properly labeled. And I do want to mention here that if you tap on that search, it will take you to where it will ask you to subscribe to the premium subscription, which costs like $2.99 a month, basically $3 a month, or $29.99 annually. Those are the only subscription models that we have with Instapaper. To the right of that, we've got
Detected. Icon more.
more. Now, let's go ahead though, before we get to the more, let's start on the top left and see what we have in the menu when I tap on that top left button.
Detected. Icon menu, text.
I am now in the menu, and here we come across
Home and list.
something that says home, and that's where I am currently. That is where my articles are. And below that,
Liked.
that is articles that you've liked. Next,
Archive.
archive,
Videos.
videos, that if you have saved some videos.
Notes.
Notes, these are notes you've created, maybe while reading an article.
Browse.
And the last item here is the browse. So when we tap on the browse, it will take us to the curated or the handpicked articles that the staff of Instapaper have chosen. I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Browse. Tucker Carlson's vulgar, offensive messages about college. The history of Control+Alt+Delete. www.
So you can see the articles here. So for example, if I go down,
Double gun by last call for
I
gum
go
shoes.
down.
Google versus AI whiteboard Friday. Moz.com.
So for example, let's say I want to open this particular item from Google versus AI.
Instapaper. Save and list.
Tapping on that, I hear save, and below that,
Open in browser.
open in browser. Now, if I tap on the save button, for example,
Save.
it will add that to the list of my articles. I'll tap here so you'll see what I'm talking about. And when we go back to the home, then you'll see that this is going to be on the top of the list.
Saved. Instapaper. Instapaper. Google versus AI
All right.
feature.
Now, let's go back to the top. Now that we are in browse, we got one new button that got introduced, and that would be the second button from the very top right corner will be something that says friends. So in other words, you could add friends so friends can see what you are reading or what they are reading.
Friends. Out of list.
And of course, I don't have any friends in here. So if I tap here, there'll be no friends in there. And to the right of it will be
Detected. Icon more.
more options. Now, if you tap on these more options, the only thing you will find here will be the settings, the same settings that we will find in the more options if we were in the home area, which has more items. So let's not go into the settings here since it's the same thing. I want to go back to the main area. So I'm going to tap now on the menu on the top left corner to bring up the menu, and then I'll tap on home.
Browse.
There we go, tapping on browse now, which is the menu. I will now find the home.
Home.
There's my home.
Home. Google versus AI whiteboard.
So as you can hear, there's the article sitting there at the top of the list of the articles that I have saved. And that was the one I tapped on from the browse. Now, I had mentioned earlier that the more options here, when tapped on here in the area that says home, we have more items in that more options than when compared to the one that is found in the browse. So I will now tap on that more options on the top right.
Detected. Icon more. Out of list.
And I'll tap.
Pop-up window. Sort and list.
So here we find the sort, in other words, how you want to sort your articles, by newest first or oldest first or shuffle. The next item,
Filter.
filter. That is, if you want to filter some articles that you don't want to be in, if they're shorter than 5 minutes or whatever, you can choose to filter those things out. Next,
Settings.
we come across the settings, and that's the last item. Let's go ahead and tap on that settings.
Settings. Detected. Icon menu. Text apostrophe Instapaper. Settings. Out of list.
Tapping on that settings, we're focused on the top left corner, and that's the menu button again. Now, if I move my finger down here, we'll find something that says theme.
Theme. Disabled. Enlist.
Now, that theme below that has what I refer to as 3 different themes from left to right. They sit like tabs. And the first one is like an ancient looking book, paper from old, maybe the sepia, that kind of color. And then the one in the middle will be the light color. And then the one on the farthest right will be the dark theme. So if you like dark theme, you could tap on the right one. However, these things don't make any sound, or rather, these things are not labeled, so they don't speak what they are. So in order to find them, you have to have your ear cons on. I don't have ear cons, and so if I'm navigating here, I'm not going to hear anything, but they are there. And if you want them, turn your ear cons on so that you can hear those little tabs. This is something to report to the developer to fix accessibility. Below that, though, we have the basics.
Basic options. Disabled.
We hear basic options disabled, and below that,
Rotation. Allow screen rotation. Switch. Off.
that's rotation. If you want it to rotate to landscape or whatever, I leave mine off.
Automatic dark mode. Switch to dark mode during night. Switch. Off.
So if you want it to automatically turn into the dark mode at night, you can turn this one on.
Scroll mode. Tilt scrolling.
Here we hear something called scrolling. By default, the tilt scrolling is not the default. I chose the tilt scrolling, and I'll tell you why. Because we have either the tilt scrolling or the pagination scrolling. Now, the difference is that if you have the pagination, then the pages are scrolled, horizontally, that is, not vertically. And what happens is that if you choose the pagination, flipping of the pages, what happens is that there are some buttons that will not show up when you have it set that way. So buttons like style or the more options where it has the speak, that is to tap on that to make the article read via the TTS, is not going to be there. So I chose to leave mine in the tilt so that I'll see those options. I'll show you what I'm talking about, for example, when I go to an article. Next item.
Flip pages. Disabled.
Next.
Tilt scrolling direction.
And the tilt scrolling direction, and you could have either reverse or normal. Next.
Volume button scrolling. Allow scrolling using volume buttons. Switch. Off.
Next.
Account. Disabled.
We come across account, and below that simply says my email address.
Username. Worker at G. Premium. Upgrade.
And then we got premium. You could update. You tap here, and it'll take you to where you could subscribe to those 2 models that I mentioned earlier, the $2.99 a month or $29.99 annually. Those are the only ones we have. We don't have a lifetime subscription.
Profile privacy. Private.
Profile privacy. In other words, you could choose to make yourself get seen. By default is set to private.
Sign out.
Then we've got sign out.
Social accounts. Disabled.
And we hear social accounts disabled. And below that, we have things like
Facebook.
Twitter,
Tumblr.
Evernote,
Pinboard.
Oh, there's something called Pinboard. Never heard of that.
More options. Disabled.
Then we have more options like a header, and below that,
Advanced.
we have advanced, and then the last item here will be
About. Instapaper 4.5.3.
That's the last item. Let's go up though to the advanced because there are some things we can look into.
Advanced.
Let's go ahead and tap on advanced.
Advanced. Read download all articles and list.
The first item we hear in advanced is to read all the articles.
Home. 100 latest articles.
And home.
Liked. 10 latest articles.
Liked.
Archive. 10 latest articles.
Archive.
Other options. Disabled.
Then we hear other options disabled, and below that,
Full screen.
full screen. So if you tap here, it'll offer you how to go about full screen, whether you double tap or whatever, to show you a full screen of the article and things like that. I'm not interested in that.
Update.
We have update.
Background update. Never.
And then we have background update never. And what this does is if you tap in here, you have either 1 hour, 12 hour, 24 hours, and the never. So if I change to 1 hour, what that will do is update the hand-picked articles from the staff of Instapaper. That's what that has to do with. Now let's go back.
Settings. Advanced. And list.
And I'll go back again.
Instapaper. Detected. Icon more. Out of list.
Now let's go click on one of these articles.
Google versus AI Whiteboard Friday.
And I
Moz.com.
tap.
Instapaper. Google versus AI Whiteboard Friday. WebView.
Now if I put my finger down,
Large language models have taken the world by storm in recent months. In today's episode, Tom goes over some of the new threats to Google from recent advances in machine learning models like Chat, and how Google might react to those threats.
okay, now, so we've got some buttons here, and because we are in that tilt scrolling mode, and we have some buttons starting from the very top, we have the navigate the top,
Navigate up button.
and then moving to the right,
Like.
we have the like, so you can like that article, and to the right of that,
Archive.
archive. I could tap here to archive this article.
Delete.
I could tap here to delete it from my collection, or
Style.
style. That is, if you tap here, you can choose the fonts and the brightness, how you want it to look, and all of that. Next,
More.
we have the more. Now, tapping on this more will take us to where we could tap on the speak to read it aloud if you want it read via the TTS engine. Now, tap here on more.
Pop-up window. Move and list.
You could choose to move it,
Share.
share,
Enable tilt scrolling.
enable tilt scrolling,
Open in browser.
or open it in your browser.
Speed read.
Speed read, that is, if you want to read it quickly. In other words, if you can see and you want to do some speed read, you could do that. Next.
Speak.
The last item here is speak. Now, if I tap here on the speak, it should start reading that with the TTS engine from Google.
Instapaper. Google versus AI Whiteboard.
Large language models have taken the world by storm in recent months. In today's episode, Tom goes over some of the new threats to Google from recent advances in machine learning models like ChatGPT and how Google might react to those
Play
threats.
stop beat.
At the bottom, though, we have the play/stop. I think that what I don't like is that it doesn't support the double tapping to stop or resume playback, for example. So if I double tap with 2 fingers, nothing gets played. I have to actually go tap on that play pause at the bottom. So at the bottom, once you have the TTS readout going on, you have 5 buttons at the very bottom. Starting from the bottom left, we have the close TTS, that is, to close the TTS engine or the read out loud via the TTS.
Detected. Icon close. Text X. Button.
And then to the right of it,
Detected. Icon left. Left. Button.
you can tap on that to move you, rewind you back. And to the right of that is the middle button out of the 5, and that's the play/pause button.
Play stop BTN. Button. Detected.
then-
Icon play.
To the right of that,
Detected. Icon right. Right. Button.
that's a move to the right, that is forward. And
1.0x.
1.0x. That's the speed. So you can change how fast the TTS reads. So for example, let's say I go tap on that play.
Detected. Icon play button.
In today's episode, Tom goes over some of the
1.5x.
new threats to Google from recent advances in machine. In today's episode, Tom goes over some of the new threats to Google from
Tab
recent
again.
advances in machine. In today's episode,
Tab again.
Tom goes over some of the new threats to
Play
Google
stop
from
beat.
recent.
So as you can see, that changes you between 3 different speeds. And that's what that does. That is a quick demonstration of the Instapaper. And thanks for listening to this demo of Instapaper.